And we're back. Bart Taylor is the creative curator at the Will Rogers Memorial Museum here in Claremore. Bart, good to have you, buddy.
Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate
I'm
you.
sitting here, we're talking about Will, and
Yeah.
I'm learning things I didn't even know.
Well, that is the job here. You know, the Will Rogers interpreter or historian. Interpreter, folks think I speak a different language, which I don't. You know, it's just Will Rogers. So as the historian, you know, I'm responsible for making them come alive and connecting you to those stories that you're like, are those real? It was real, right? And so a lot of times folks have those stories when they come meet me, or, you know, folks hear something about Will, they're always asking, did he really do this? And I get an opportunity to actually tell you the backstory and connect you to that legacy. So
We have a little time before I
Yeah.
get into the interview
Sounds
on this,
good.
so I want to ask you a question I'd ask you during the break, which was, there is a movie version
yes,
of Will lassoing a steer
Yep.
in New York City.
there is indeed.
Did it really happen?
It really happened. When that movie came out, I believe in '53, Will Rogers Jr. played his dad, and he worked hard enough to be able to recreate that scene because his dad was, you know, a world-class roper.
Sure.
And so the scene is set up perfectly in the movie. You know, as Will's doing his roping act, one of the large 600-pound, 700-pound steers got loose and went towards the audience. Well, Will, with his rope, who do you want around when a steer gets loose?
This is Madison Square Garden.
This is Madison Square Garden, you know, back 1905, thousands of people watching the Mulhall Rodeo because Will was their featured roper. And he's like the hype man, so he's riding around, and in the middle of his thing, the steer jumps out of the pen and runs towards the audience. Well, again, like we said, you want a roper there. And so Will rides over there. Eventually, he can't locate it until he gets to the third level. Gets off his horse, ropes the cow, brings it back down, ties the feet up, throws his hands in the air, and all those people are making their way back to their seats, right?
Yeah.
They were leaving for the exits.
So it really did
It really
happen.
happened. And that's a great way to kick off because that's what put Will on the map nationally. 5 different New York newspapers said Will Rogers is a hero, heroic deeds done by Will Rogers. And that night, you can set alone to say, that's when it turned for Will. That's when he becomes Will Rogers,
He
right?
went from walking the boards to being one.
100%.
Yeah,
And so it really is that story. I'm glad you brought that up. That was a good one.
That's incredible.
Isn't that? Yeah, definitely.
You got big happenings over at the museum.
We do.
Here in Claremore, hosting events for spring break.
Yep.
Give us an idea of what to expect.
Well, so spring break obviously is a big time for the museum. We have 5 days with things going on. From 1 to 3, I believe it starts March 18th through the 25th, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. every day. Monday, of course, we open up the vaults. You're going to be able to see Will Rogers, things that he wore in his movies, Steamboat Around the Bend. You're going to be able to see things that were 100 years old, but we're keeping in good condition in our vaults. You actually get to see those things. One thing that we do once a year on the Monday of spring break, the family allows us to open up the tomb 1 day a year. And you get to go down inside and see Will Rogers and pay respects.
I got to tell you,
it's amazing.
I've been there,
Yes.
and it was an emotional experience
It
for
really
me
is.
because here's Will, here's Betty. I walked up, I put my hand on it. I mean, it was a very emotional movement for me.
It's a goosebump moment. I agree with you. When I was taking down a lady, she's 88 years old. She was alive when Will was alive. And I held her hand as we walked down those stairs to see Will's tomb. And folks from all over Oklahoma show up that day, Monday of spring break, because folks want to see that. Folks want to be as close as they can to one of the greatest Americans of all time.
Don't you also have the typewriter?
We do. We have the typewriter that was in the crash with Will sitting right next to him. Like, this is something that was a connecting tool. Will was a connector, right? Will was able to connect not only his arts and his through his different mediums, but when it came to writing, that thing, 1 million words Will produced, 4,000 columns syndicated in 500 newspapers across the world.
Everybody carried him.
Everybody carried Will Rogers, and they say that of the 120 million people in the country of that day, 100 million would read his words every week, would watch his movies every week, would read his books, would hear him on the radio.
Every week.
Every week. You name a person like that today, you know?
We got a little less than 2 minutes. Can we zip through the week of what all you're offering spring break?
For sure. Tuesday, we're going to have basically a hands-on history type of day. So come learn what Will learned back in the 19th century, right? 1800s, late 1800s, since Will was born in 1879. But we'll do candle dipping, we'll do branding, we'll do all sorts of stuff that Will would have done as a kid and make it entertaining and fun. Wednesday is also going to be a fun day. That is going to be Aviation Day. Of course, Will was an early purveyor of aviation. We're going to have not only the IMSA folks are going to fly their plane, the air evac, and land out there in the parking lot. We're also going to have flight simulators and folks with their little the little planes that they fly around. They're going to bring those out too, the models that can fly.
Wow.
Thursday is our movie day. Of course, Will made 71 movies, was the top box office star, 33, 34, and 35, beating Clark Gable, right? Will was the biggest of the big back then. So 71 movies. We're going to be playing movies all day long in the theater on Thursday, and then Friday is our talent show. So Will was a talented person, multi-talented, and this is a way for kids to be on a stage, to be like Will Rogers and produce a talent and show the rest of the community.
I got to tell you, that my favorite picture, it was taken, I don't know where it was taken, but it shows Will reading a newspaper. There's a horse on the floor.
Yeah.
On the floor
Yeah.
of this house.
Yes.
Will's got his foot up, I think on the side of the horse, and Betty's sitting next to him.
Yeah. Well, and it's like the horse, or it's like Sarah the cow.
Yeah.
There's pictures of him bringing in, livestock or horses into his house as pets. And so, it's Will Rogers. He's one of the funniest guys. And, he also is just a cowboy that grew up in Oklahoma. Animals are allowed to come inside sometimes. So.
Well, Bart, thank you. You're charming to have.
Thank you.
And I'd like to have you back if you
Would love to come back, yeah.
We'll get you over here.
I can teach you your first rope trick, maybe.
I'd like that.
No doubt I can do it.
All right, you're on, buddy.
All right.
You're coming back.
Sounds good.
Thanks again.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's all the time we have. As if it weren't enough, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.